Welcome to our last news broadcast of the 20th century. We're your hosts, Rachel
and Monica. Hundreds of fascinating and important events occurred during the 1990s. However, due to the time limits placed on us by our supervisors, we'll have to make things a little bit more concise and recap what we consider to be the most important moments in the decade leading up to the turn of the century.
In 1990, the Hubble telescope was launched into space by NASA. Hubble is a telescope that orbits the Earth and captures photographs from far above our atmosphere. Later, in 1991, was the official end of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. By the beginning of 1990, almost all communist leaders had been ousted in favor of popular elections. On December 8, 1991, the 45-year-long Cold War was finally over.
On March 3, 1991, black motorist Rodney King, after leading LAPD police out on a high-speed chase, was beaten and struck over 50 times with police batons. Civilian George Holliday filmed the beating from his balcony and delivered the tape to a local TV station the next day. The Rodney King riots began in South Central Los Angeles on April 29, 1992. They occurred because the 4 white officers involved in the beating were indicted but later acquitted. The riots lasted about 5 days total. After being indicted again, 2 of the officers involved in the beating were convicted in April of 1993 and sentenced to spend 2.5 years in prison. At the end of the riots, over 50 people died and 2,000 were injured.
On April 5, 1994, Kurt Cobain, the 27-year-old lead singer of the popular band Nirvana, committed suicide in his Seattle home after walking out of rehab 2 days prior. He had not been returning any calls. His mother filed a missing persons report, and his wife, Courtney Love, hired a private investigator to find him. Cobain had struggled with drugs and depression for most of his life. It's safe to say we were just as upset about hearing the news of Cobain's death as we were with the verdict of the trial you're going to hear about next.
In early June of 1994, O.J. Simpson, a former NFL player, was indicted on the charge of killing his ex-wife and her boyfriend. The trial lasted 11 months and was extremely controversial due to the fact that Simpson was a popular celebrity and the entire trial was televised. The incident became even more disputed because of the belief that Simpson's trial was another conspiracy, wrongly accusing a black man of a crime he did not commit. The Rodney King riots were still fresh in everyone's minds. It was known as the trial of the century. Simpson was defended by a high-profile team, but the district attorneys believed they had a solid case against him. Eventually, Simpson was found not guilty, largely due to the fact that his head lawyer, Johnny Cochran, presented a glove found at the scene that had Simpson's DNA on it but did not fit his hand. This led to the initial use of the now famous phrase, "If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit." After being found not guilty in the criminal trial in 1995, Simpson was found guilty in a civil trial against the parents. At the end of August 1997, Princess Diana of Wales was tragically killed in a car accident in Paris, along with the driver and her friend Imad Mohamed Al Fayed. The car was being chased by paparazzi after leaving the Ritz Hotel in Paris. Both Britain and America mourned her tragic death.
Even though the 90s ended on sort of a sad note, many people are excited for the fresh start of the new century. When we come back from our commercial break, we'll explore all kinds of interesting art forms from the 1990s.
It stretches.
It twists.
Ooh. It slides.
More colors. Collect them all.
Up next is our music replay of the 90s. Take it away, Rachel.
Thank you, Monica. The 90s music genres had a wide variety that spread from rap to pop to even grunge. Popular artists of the 90s included Alanis Morissette, No Doubt, TLC, and the Backstreet Boys. Janet Jackson, a powerful female singer, used her fame for charitable events. She donated proceeds from her single, Together Again, to AMFAR, a foundation for AIDS research.
Wow, I just love the Backstreet Boys.
Popular songs of this decade include Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, a successful alternative rock grunge band of the decade, Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot, a rapper whose fame skyrocketed after this double platinum hit was released, and Wannabe by the all-female British pop band the Spice Girls. Smells Like Teen Spirit was released in 1991, Baby Got Back was released in 1992, and Wannabe was released in 1996. Out of the three, only Sir Mix-a-Lot received a Grammy Award for Baby Got Back, earning the Grammy for Best Rap Solo Performance in 1993. Both Smells Like Teen Spirit and Wannabe reached record-breaking numbers on charts not only in the US but across the world as well. As you can see, the 90s held a broad range of music that everyone will be able to enjoy for years to come.
Next we have Courtney, giving us an inside scoop about art from the 90s.
In this past decade, art has changed tremendously due to cultural changes. In most cases, art has become more grungy. The creation of the internet greatly impacted art, giving people a new medium to create art through. Isn't that mad? Artist Aziz Kusher had a crazy art style that would eliminate facial features, making them look almost lifeless. This piece, Pam and Kim, was featured in a large work named Dystopia, created in 1994 through 1995. Another piece was Snakes, created by Robert A. Mickelson, which was a 3D CGI image. It was very bizarre and was created in 1993. On a different path of artwork in this decade, Bob Ross created a very calming piece, A Wilderness Day, in 1994. Bob Ross was a very influential artist at the beginning of this decade. He was a master sergeant in the Air Force, which helped inspire him to create paintings because of his experiences traveling. In 1983, he created a TV show called The Joy of Painting, which aired over 400 episodes. He was so influential because of his soft voice and his use of little phrases like happy little trees. Ross loved painting and had created thousands of paintings throughout his lifetime. He estimated that he created roughly 30,000. Sadly, his show had to stop airing in 1994 so he could pay more attention to his health. They discovered he had lymphoma, and he died on July 4th, 1995. His legacy lives on through his paintings and how he inspired young people to want to paint.
Thank you, Courtney. Monica, why don't you take it away with your literature segment?
During the 1990s, there were many revolutionary and iconic books published. Some of the most popular were the first 3 volumes of the Harry Potter series, The Virgin Suicides, and Jurassic Park. Joanne Rowling, better known as J.K. Rowling, is the author of the critically acclaimed Harry Potter series. After living on welfare with her young daughter, Rowling wrote the first sentences of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone in a cafe. After finishing the manuscript and being rejected repeatedly, she sold the book to the British publisher Bloomsbury for about $4,000. She says she was advised to get a day job as she probably wouldn't make much money writing children's books. Obviously, this has proved to be massively untrue, as Rowling's books are immensely popular amongst young children and young adults. The Harry Potter series is the story of a young boy living with his abusive cousin and an uncle, who finds out one day that he's a wizard. The story follows Harry Potter's adventures in various battles with the dark wizard Voldemort, who killed Harry's parents when he was just a baby. Although the first series of the book was only published in 1997, the following books in the series are highly anticipated by fans around the world. We can't wait to read what J.K. Rowling has in store for us in the next century. Author Stephen Graham Jones describes The Virgin Suicides as the book of the 90s, the feeling in the dark after something that can at least please feel true. That's exactly what being alive and aware in 1993 was all about. The Virgin Suicides follows an anonymous group of teenage boys who try and solve the mystery of why 5 alluring, enigmatic sisters committed suicide. It's a short read, but we were unable to put it down. Jurassic Park chronicles a millionaire who owns a theme park featuring cloned dinosaurs. The park, as predicted by one of the other main characters, malfunctions, and the dinosaurs come to life and wreak havoc on the island. It's already being heralded as a modern classic, and was adapted into a blockbuster hit just 3 years after it was published in 1990. Literature in the 1990s grappled with the political, social, and global changes taking place in the decade.
Thank you, Monica. Now let's move on to movies and television with Cher.
Thanks. The 90s has been one of the most revolutionary times for the TV and film industry. It's been producing some of the greatest and most popular TV shows and movies of all time. At the Cannes Film Festival, America got its first look at the new cult favorite, Pulp Fiction, the story of 2 hitmen, a mob boss, his wife, and an aging boxer. The movie reinvented and revived the classic gangster genre, and brought a fresh new mix of violence and humor to the big screen. America had its heartstrings tugged with the story of Forrest Gump, a film about a disabled man's journey through life, his witnessing and personal influence through major historic moments, and his relationship with a childhood friend who took some wrong turns along the way. The film took home quite a few Oscars and the admiration of critics. Completing the whirlwind of emotions that Hollywood brought to its viewers this decade was The Matrix, a film that brought movie lovers into a world of the impossible and a state of fearful doubt about the truth of their own realities. Television also saw such great hits as The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Boy Meets World, and The X-Files. These shows kept the American public glued to their TV screens in anticipation of each new episode. One of our most influential directors this decade was Steven Spielberg, who brought us such hits as Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List, Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Spielberg brought the world through a series of drama and emotion this past decade and won many well-deserved awards for his contributions to the film industry.
Thanks, Cher. Let's move on to photography of the 90s with Brittany.
Photography has had a major impact throughout the 90s. Photography has mostly been focused on realism, people doing daily activities. This is in great contrast to the glamour of the 80s. Much of the photography has also been in fashion, usually a grunge style, and the photos have an overall gritty feel. The heroin chic trend also gained popularity in the mid-90s, featuring emancipated models, a grunge style, and in a sense glamorizing substance abuse. Some have criticized these types of photos for glorifying low culture, substance abuse, and sexual promiscuity. The invention of the World Wide Web and Photoshop have also had an immense impact on photography, popularizing edited photos and even art purely made in Photoshop. Retouching models in photos has also become standard practice in the last 10 years, redefining beauty standards. Peter Lindbergh is a German photographer who has pioneered the realism photo style of this past decade. Lindbergh doesn't retouch his photos, setting him apart from other photographers. He is best known for his minimalistic and revealing portraits. He is also the first photographer to add a narrative to his fashion series. This narrative has brought a whole new meaning and perspective to fashion photography. Lindbergh's most famous piece was probably his January 1990 Vogue cover, featuring 5 models in New York City, even though he was originally only asked to shoot 1, stating that the idea of beauty had broadened.
Thanks for watching our special New Year's Eve recap of the 1990s. See you in the next century!
Chocolate.